In a fantasy world modeled on Southeast Asia, a beautiful young woman grapples with her trust issues in 2021's Raya and the Last Dragon. I was surprised that I liked this movie at all, but I really enjoyed it, especially the first third. Much like Avatar: The Last Airbender and numerous other American faux Asian fantasies of the past 20 years, it has very little to do with actual Asian culture. But I realized this is actually why I like it. It belongs to a tradition much older than Avatar. Raya's ancestors can be found in the various Sinbad movies that thrilled audiences in the first 80 decades of cinema. I'm particularly fond of Howard Hughes' Son of Sinbad. Or various Asian and Arabian fantasies like the great 1941 Thief of Baghdad, and, in a distant way, to Arabian Nights. It's the Western fantasy of Asia, and naturally it's beautiful and exciting. There are even traces of Shanghai Express and Gunga Din. Poking around online this morning, I find most of the discourse around this movie is related to its representation of Southeast Asians and its similarity to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, I've had multiple occasions to observe, have massive chips on their shoulders. I remember talking to one at San Diego Comic-Con years ago when James Cameron's Avatar was coming out, and this particular fan felt Cameron's choice of title was a deliberate slap in the face to Last Airbender fans. I personally think it unlikely Cameron had heard of The Last Airbender, but Last Airbender fans naturally don't like to consider this scenario. It hardly surprised me, a lot of them got their hackles up when Raya was compared to The Last Airbender, though now they were largely mad because they didn't consider the comparison appropriate. Then it became an excuse for dogpiling Lindsay Ellis for the crime of being successful. Maybe it's because Last Airbender fans are so bent out of shape about their beloved series not getting the recognition it deserves that they've grown to see any suggestion that one work is like another as an accusation of cold-blooded theft. I finally saw Avatar: The Last Airbender last year. I'd never sought it out because I figured, why watch faux anime when I can watch real anime? A millennial friend of mine is a big fan, so she showed me 2 or 3 episodes on Netflix. And I had to admit, it was pretty damn good. I said, "It's like Indiana Jones." And she didn't like that. I meant it as a compliment, but she took it as the gravest insult. The 3 episodes we'd watched was a second season arc about the heroes exploring an excavated ancient library to find a mystical artifact that would lead them to another point on their quest. I felt like most people of my generation would call Indiana Jones on it. But of course the Indiana Jones movies are themselves influenced by Secret of the Incas, Alan Ladd's China, and the King Solomon's Mines with Stuart Granger, among many other adventure serials. Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese, Coppola, and other filmmakers of their circle were all heavily influenced by the 1941 Thief of Baghdad. So I was happy to see this tradition alive and well in The Last Airbender and in Raya and the Last Dragon. But it's the Indiana Jones influence that seems particularly potent in Raya. Raya, Kelly Marie Tran, is armed with a whip sword, a weapon that looks identical to Ivy's distinctive weapon from Soul Calibur. But it's the Indiana Jones comparison I want to talk about today. She even uses it to swing across a chasm, Indiana Jones style, to where she must carefully remove a gemstone from the booby-trapped corpse of its greedy possessor. Later, when Raya and her friends make their escape on a speeding shrimp boat from a group pursuing on horseback, it was hard not to think of Indy getting away on a plane at the last possible moment at the beginnings of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. Where Raya loses its way is in becoming too caught up in a message about the necessity for trusting people. A lot of people have already written about how poorly conceived and executed it is. Raya trusts a girl from a rival country and accidentally enables her to steal the MacGuffin, which leads to the near destruction of the world. Raya is betrayed again and again, but she's portrayed as morally deficient when she decides not to trust someone right away. Notably, the girl who'd already betrayed her twice. The sloppiness extends to some nonsensical dialogue that plenty of people have already picked through. It all adds up to the usual insubstantiality of the message. If only Raya had truly followed the example of The Last Airbender or Son of Sinbad and just concentrated on telling a good adventure with charismatic characters. Kelly Marie Tran is actually really sexy as Raya. Her voice has a really nice sensual purr to it once you stop thinking about Rose Taco. And I've warmed to Awkwafina, who plays the titular dragon, Sisu, ever since I found out she wrote a song about her vagina. I think it was mainly her hideous costume in Shang-Chi that put me off. The animation is great, sometimes too great, as the film occasionally enters the uncanny valley, especially with Raya's father. It makes me wonder if the animators didn't simply motion capture the voice actors. I bet it would save a lot of time. But the design and rendering quality is really gorgeous. Raya and the Last Dragon is available on Disney+.